Hey everybody, James here, and this is a video response to Be Serious and her video, The Cosmic Language of Primes. Really interesting video, I highly recommend you check it out. And I just want to expand on some of the ideas which she presented. So the idea which links to the title is that we may discover, is that if we search for prime numbers being transmitted to us, that would be very, very strong indication of sentient life. And I think the reasoning behind this is pretty solid. Prime numbers are not something you see in nature, they're something which have to be computed. And so if we do receive a transmission of prime numbers, there can't really be a natural origin for it. There's no real way that nature can create such a signal that we're aware of. So I do think that would be very strong, if not conclusive, proof of alien life. Now, my view on alien life is that life itself throughout the galaxy is probably pretty common, but I think that sentience is extremely rare. I think that we are probably the only sentient life in our galaxy. Now, this is not a conclusion I came to lightly. I'd really like to believe that there is sentient life all over our galaxy, but from my reasoning and my research, the conclusion seems inescapable that we are the only sentient life, at least in our galaxy. I'll be getting into why I think that's the case a little bit later, but essentially there's three ways which we could discover life at the moment. So the first way would be within our solar system, where we can have pretty direct evidence. Mars seems like quite a good candidate. Europa is another possibility, so's Titan, and although I think it's extremely unlikely Mercury would have any life, it has been found to have liquid water. So nature throws us curveballs every now and again. This is not something which anybody was really expecting to see, and with discoveries like this, it really does kind of open our eyes to thinking that perhaps we're wrong in what we think the conditions needed for life are. Of course, though, our best chance of finding life would be finding a planet like Earth, the same sort of size and within the habitable zone, because from the sample size of one that we have, where life we know actually exists, if we have to take a shot in the dark, that's the place we're going to be looking, somewhere very similar. Well, the second way in which we may find life is spectrography. We can examine the spectrum of light from a planet's atmosphere when it passes in front of its star, and from that we can determine its chemical composition. Now, if we find large amounts of oxygen in an atmosphere, that is a good indication of life, because with the abundance of hydrogen in the universe, the vast majority of oxygen will end up bonding to form water. So if we find lots of oxygen, that's a good indication that there's life present, because life is the only way we know of to create an oxygen-rich atmosphere. Now, of course, this wouldn't be definitive proof on its own, but it would warrant further investigation, and from that we may find complex hydrocarbons which are too complicated to have formed without a biological process. And the third way which we may find life is examining radio waves from planets. Now, if we could couple this with the data from Kepler, if we look at the planets which are most likely to have life and target those specifically, which I believe SETI is now doing, we may have a chance of finding life that way, but I do think that that's extremely unlikely. And again, I'll get to that why that is a bit later. But if we do have an advanced alien civilization somewhere in the galaxy, I think it's inevitable that they'd have some form of long-distance communication. That seems to be a prerequisite for space travel, effectively. And looking at the standard model, there's only really two ways that you can achieve this. There's only two particles which you can use to communicate long distances, and that's photons and neutrinos. Perhaps it's a 50-50, perhaps they'll end up using neutrinos, and we may end up being able to detect those instead in the future. So on to why I think that life is probably very common, but sentience is probably very rare. So I'll flash up the Drake equation. It's a famous equation which aims to roughly guess how much life and how much sentience there is in the galaxy. So you basically multiply loads of numbers together and you get the amount of life. Now these numbers are variables. We don't know what the variables are necessarily, but if we did, it in theory should give us a very good estimation of how much life there is out there. So you've got the rate of star formation, the fraction of those stars which have planets, the fraction of those planets which could support life, blah blah blah, and it should give you quite a good guess for the amount of life. Now, I think that it would be nearly impossible for there not to be any other life out there in the galaxy. And even if we look within our own solar system, like I said earlier, you've got Mars, Europa, Titan, and even Mercury with a slim possibility there. We've lots of places within our own solar system have been, I guess, near misses for life would be a way of putting it. We've been constantly surprised at the level of complexity in weather systems, rock formation, and chemical composition of places outside Earth. They really have surprised us in just how much is going on there. Mars has nearly all of the conditions which could have supported life at one point. And if we're getting that close to the right conditions, even within our own solar system, outside of the habitable zone, then I think that it's insane to believe that there's no other life outside Earth. And the reason I think that sentience is rare or non-existent outside Earth within our galaxy is because I noticed a huge gaping flaw with the Drake equation. And I'm not the first person to come up with this, but I did come up with the idea independently. Basically, one thing that the Drake equation completely neglects is that if there is sentient life outside our solar system, it may well have the ability to travel and colonize other planets. Now, using the Drake equation, an analogy would be looking at Earth and going, right, human beings have evolved in Africa, and they're one of only 500 million species which became sentient. Therefore, if we look at other continents, the chance of us finding sentience, looking at all the other continents, would be about 1 in 100 million or something like that. And of course that's complete nonsense, because of course human beings have travelled and basically colonised every square kilometre of habitable land on Earth. And the same thing, I think, would happen in the galaxy with sentient life if it existed. we're likely to see a high level of convergent evolution if there was ever sentience. They're likely to have the same curiosity, drive to expand and improve and basically continue on previous technology that humans have. They'd have to have that urge to constantly drive forward like we do in order to have an advanced civilization. So, of course, if they had the ability to colonize other planets, then within just a couple of million years tops, they would have inhabited every single inhabitable planet in the galaxy and quite possibly terraformed a lot of them as well within a couple of million years. Now, looking at SETI, using SETI, we have not found a single alien signal, which leads me to believe that they just aren't out there, because if they were, they would be everywhere. Of course, that's assuming that they're quite a few thousand years ahead of us, potentially, but the chance of us finding an alien civilization exactly in line with us is just exceedingly unlikely. With the age of the galaxy, they're either going to be millions of years behind or millions of years ahead. The chance of us being within 1,000 years of the top is just so low that it's not even worth considering. If there's any which are better than us, they'd either be worse or better by an absolutely gigantic amount. And yeah, I mean, that is a troubling thing for me. You know, I would love to believe that there are advanced aliens out there. Now, we are in about the first 0.1% of the stelliferous period. That's the period in the universe where stars can still form. Now, being this early seems really strange to me, so perhaps we really are just the first sentients, and we're just very early starters. Sentient life needs to be highly complex, almost by definition, and of course, this takes a lot of time. You need the formation of galaxies, you need at least 3 generations of stars to provide the heavy elements, you need to have the formation of planets and billions of years of evolution, and perhaps we just are very, very, very close to the earliest possible time that that could take. I'm kind of surprised that no creationists have actually brought this up as an argument for God, but my refutation to that would be very simple. I can't speak at the moment. Very similar to the anthropic principle. Perhaps the reason we ask why we're so early is that if we weren't, we wouldn't be asking. And a long time in the future, perhaps the universe will be absolutely teeming with sentience. Anyway, despite my severe doubts, I think that we should certainly continue our search with SETI and other similar projects. At the moment, I think that our ability is roughly equivalent to being able to detect a military communication tower from about 500 light years away. And our ability to detect these signals is increasing pretty much alongside Moore's law, meaning that in about 15 years' time we'll be 1,000 times better at it. We'd be able to pick up maybe a walkie-talkie or something like that from 500 light years away, or detect a military communication tower from 500,000 light years, or further than the galaxy. And I think that we could be a lot more intelligent with our search. If aliens want to be found, they might send signals which coincide with phenomena that they'd be pretty certain that other civilizations are going to look at. So, for example, they could send a signal in the opposite direction to their sun, because they know that other civilizations are going to be looking for transits to detect planets. So when their planet goes in front of the sun and you've got a transit, their signal is going straight towards you, and you go, oh, there's intelligent life there. And they could also do something like sending signals in the opposite way to the galactic centre, because other civilizations are bound to be looking at that, and if there's anything roughly in line of sight, they're going to detect it. Or possibly using supernovas. So you've got supernova going off here, the light travels, alien planet sees the supernova, then they send their signal away, and it eventually reaches us at a very similar time to seeing the supernova. So yeah, there's a few of my ideas. So yeah, just to reiterate, prime's very good. Life very likely to exist throughout the universe, but and the galaxy at least. And sentience, I think that we may well be the only sentience in our galaxy at least. So that's it for now. I'll leave a link to some of my other space videos down below, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye.